Well, Gary Robertson, Associated Press, thanks for being with us again this year and
Sure.
today. Lots of stuff happening early on this
Yes,
year.
it's unusual.
Very unusual. Talk about, first of all, the big one that's been happening in the Senate, the Balanced Budget Act.
Well, we were talking earlier that the Balanced Budget Act, it's the Balanced Budget Act of 2011. It's more really the Balanced Budget Act for 2012 because right now, in theory, our budget is balanced. We're bringing in enough revenues to cover expenses, but Republicans are concerned that this $3.7 billion projected shortfall for next year is going to be too large to handle in 1 year. So that what they're trying to do is generate some carryover, and they've asked Governor Perdue to find $400 million in savings. They're also going to take about $140 million from various pots of money throughout state government, including some of the tobacco trust funds. And so it's been interesting to see that kind of morph through the week, where it went to the Senate floor and Republicans passed it on generally a party line vote.
It's almost like would you rather have it hurt now or hurt later when it comes to this money? It's got to come from somewhere eventually. They're just trying to, I guess, get a head start, like you said.
Yeah, I think that's what they said on the floor. Like Senator Richard Stevens, who is one of the primary sponsors and one of the Senate budget writers now, he says, if we do this now, it will make the pain a little less painful for the next budget cycle. But we hear Democrats who are particularly concerned, not necessarily about the cutting, but more about what pots of money they chose. In particular, the Golden Leaf Foundation, which gets half of the tobacco settlement money, as well as two key economic incentives programs that Governor Perdue uses a lot. And it came to some tough words in committee and in the Senate chamber this week.
And do you feel this is a way for the Senate Republicans to say, we want to make cuts, but we don't want it to be our pen that's making those cuts. We want to make sure Governor Perdue has this ability to make these choices, so it's on her dime, maybe.
Well, I think I'm sure there's some discussion about that. I know that there are some people out there who feel like it's the legislature who appropriates, and they should be the ones that should be cutting as well. But I think there's a view out there among some that if you let the chief executive, meaning Governor Perdue, who runs essentially state government as the budget director, she may know best, or her underlings may know best, where to find the cuts that will hurt the least or cause the greatest disruption to services.
Staying in the Senate now, let's move over to the other big topic that Republicans said they wanted to talk about this year was the charter school cap. It's moving along nicely for the Republicans to go through the system for the removal of the cap. It's just been discussions this week, but it looks like it's going to continue to proceed.
Well, it appears right now, and things could change, that it's not a question of if the 100 charter cap will be lifted, but when. The greater detail is what is going to replace that cap. Some Senate Republicans rolled out really a sweeping charter schools bill during the week that created a new charter schools commission that would basically license and manage the applications, and immediately some some Democrats and even some representatives of the State Board of Education said that's unconstitutional because it's the state board's job, according to the Constitution, to monitor and manage the state education system. Also some concerns about some language that would give local governments some options to help pay for charters, particularly with capital expenses. And there's also some discussions about some language that would be removed that that would remove some obstacles so that perhaps more charter schools could focus on a particular socioeconomic group of people or situations, and that's raised some concerns about resegregation among some people. So that's going to get some more work. I believe it's going to go into a subcommittee.
Move over to the House side now. The big topic on Wednesday was, in plenty of discussion, 3.5 hours of discussion, was on the health care challenge that they're trying to put out there. What do you think is the reason that this is happening, and what do you think the opposition, the Democrats, are saying, this is being rushed a little bit? Do you think this is a positive thing? Because the Senate's also introduced it this week as well.
Well, it's certainly a campaign promise that the Republicans said they would do, and they already had language drawn up last year, so it was a pretty easy thing to go through. And the Republicans had tried to make it not so much about the health care legislation, but the issues of of federal versus state government or constitutional questions. Democrats, of course, said this was being rushed and that this would ultimately, if it were successful and led to somehow overturning the health care bill, would be devastating to a lot of people who need insurance. So it seems like the Senate's going to take a pretty strong movement on that, perhaps as early as next week, start debating that.
Gary Robertson, we'll always appreciate your insight with the Associated Press.
Glad to be here.